African Americans has 9 DNA series, and everyone else has 6.
Mentally and spiritually for hundreds of years and are still surviving. They couldn't understand it, and they said so in their book. The answer came out in 1996, why it is that not only have African Americans survived the worst mental and spiritual bludgeoning of any people in recorded history, but they are becoming champions of everything in which there is a level playing field.
Mm-hmm.
No matter what it is, we predominate in every field. This is why they won't teach our children African history, because they know that once our children get on the same level playing field as their white counterparts, that they will dominate just like we dominate in basketball, baseball, football, track and field, and anything else in which there is a level playing field. So that while they teach their children about the greatness of their European ancestors, they won't teach our children about the greatness of their African ancestors, because then that would be a level playing field in academia. And they know that we will predominate, just like all of these examples we've given them, that our children predominate when they know who they are from the African historical point of view. Now, here's what I found out in 1996. A group of geneticists wrote this book. Little tiny book. Geneticists.
Can you identify where they from and the group, how it came about?
Yeah, okay. All right, sure. Yes, indeed. An organization is called the American Association for the Advancement of Science. The American Association for the Advancement of Science. Now, this organization is composed of people who study about DNA and the genome. And you've been reading about the DNA and the genomes. Well, this group of scientists came upon an idea by accident at first, that different groups of people had different numbers of DNA series.
Explain that.
Now, a DNA series means that
The basis.
when your DNA is located, and say they get a hair from your head and they subject it to certain tests, they say, well, this is the DNA of Minister Brown, and yours is different from everybody else in the world.
The average African American genome is very distinct from the African genomes from which they were taken. Now, you couple that with the fact that there is more genetic diversity within the African continent than in the rest of the world put together, which means that, on average, someone from Senegal is more different genetically to someone from Angola than either of those people are to anyone else on the rest of the planet. And that's just what the genetics says. So I know this is quite a brain scrambling concept.
No, I'm with you.
But this is one of the problems with the earlier conversation about how we categorize people. We say black people, right? Because Linnaeus said black people, Homo sapiens Afa or Africanus. But actually, it's a completely incoherent biological category because of the amount of genetic diversity that exists in people from who are in Africa or from the African diasporas. So how this relates to the transatlantic slave trade means that you've got two people taken from maybe neighboring tribes or counties or whatever the equivalent is, or countries, who are taken from their birthplace, put onto ships, mixed around, maybe live or die, they then traded around, forcibly mated potentially. We know from the genetics now that there is a lot of European DNA in the African American genome, and mostly it is from male Europeans into female African Americans. So, figure that out. Interestingly, the converse is also true. Many white Americans have up to 20% of African ancestry that we can measure in their DNA.
Most important advancements in modern medical research
can ultimately be traced back to a black woman who worked on a tobacco farm before World War II. Her name was Henrietta Lacks. In February 1951, Lacks was diagnosed with an aggressive form of cervical cancer at the Johns Hopkins Hospital. Unbeknownst to her, a sample of her cells was sent to a tissue lab. A cell biologist isolated and then multiplied it.
As it turned out, the cells did not die, as would normally be the case. And in fact, they were doubling at this phenomenal rate. They would just keep replicating.
Although these weren't the first human cells to be grown in a lab, this was the first time they survived more than a few days. This huge medical breakthrough allowed researchers to conduct experiments on human cells outside of the body. The cells were given the name HeLa, a combination of the first two letters of Henrietta Lacks' first and last names. Although they carry her name, Lacks, who passed away at the young age of 31, would never know that her cells had been extracted for scientific research. Lacks' family members only learned that her cells had been harvested 2 decades after her death. A Rolling Stone journalist contacted them and revealed that Lacks' cells had been duplicated and then used for research by countless scientists. The article called the work a critical tool in medical research. While HeLa cells have played a crucial role in scientific advancement, the fact that Lacks herself never consented to the research means that her cells were used unethically. What's more, her case was part of a long tradition of the use of African American bodies without their consent for medical and scientific research, dating back to slavery and including the infamous Tuskegee syphilis study.
It was part of a culture of not respecting the core humanity of black folk and how they were being treated either by medical researchers or even by physicians.
Despite the ethical debate around the harvesting of Lacks cells, scientists have continued to use the immortal HeLa cell line all over the world. Research involving polio vaccines, chemotherapy, HIV/AIDS, cloning, and IVF have all benefited from the HeLa cell line.
Only certain people get to wear a crown. Only certain people make the world go round. The rules are made for breaking. It's time to make a change. I know I'm in for bigger things. My destiny awaits. Someday they'll tell my story. I'll be someone you won't forget. Nothing out there can stop me. Yeah, I know that I was born to be great.